Here we have a player getting ready for a game. They've put on their gear and done their warm-up, and now it's time for one more routine, stretching. Typically, athletes stretch before physical activity to avoid injuries like muscle strains and tears. But does stretching actually prevent these issues? And if so, how long do the benefits of stretching last? To answer these questions, we need to know what's actually happening in the body when we stretch. There are two kinds of stretching our player might be doing. Dynamic stretches, which are controlled movements that engage a range of muscles throughout the motion. And static stretches, where the stretcher holds a position to keep specific muscles at a fixed length and tension. Our player is currently doing a static hamstring stretch, a 30-second interval where he pulls his hamstring beyond its usual range of motion. However, while we often think of stretching a muscle like stretching a rubber band, muscles are actually made up of various tissue types, which interact to make a complex material. Rubber is elastic, meaning it resists being stretched and then returns to its original shape. But muscle is viscoelastic. This means that, in addition to those elastic qualities, muscle changes under the stress of being stretched. Let's see this in action. At the large scale, this hamstring stretch is pulling on layers of protective tissue surrounding the muscle fibers, as well as the tendons that connect this muscle to nearby bones. These tissues contain elastic proteins like collagen and elastin, which allow them to slightly elongate over the duration of the stretch. At the smaller scale, these skeletal muscle fibers are comprised of millions of sarcomeres, the smallest contracting unit of muscle tissue. Sarcomeres' long, fibrous proteins can relax to elongate muscle fibers, or they can contract to shorten them, pulling on tendons and protective tissue to create the force propelling our player's body. And when those tissues have been stretched out, they retain their strength at longer lengths, allowing our player to take full advantage of his improved range of motion. Unlike a rubber band, this muscle's resistance to stretching decreases with each 30-second stretch, allowing our player to continually elongate his hamstring. And this improved flexibility likely decreases the chance of experiencing certain muscle injuries. But due to muscles' elastic properties, this effect will be gone in just 10 minutes without further activity. The exercise from his match should increase his muscle's temperature and continue elongating the muscle, maintaining his increased flexibility throughout the game. But once he gives his hamstrings a break, they'll go back to their previous state. So if all this is just temporary, how can you permanently improve your flexibility? For skeletal muscles, improved flexibility comes from additional sarcomeres, which allow you to maintain strength at even greater lengths. Sarcomeres are added and removed from muscles depending on how frequently they're used, so improving overall flexibility requires a comprehensive stretching regimen. Plus, you need to stretch often, very often. Current research suggests at least 10 minutes a day for about 2 months. And since it's unsafe to hold any stretch for too long, it's recommended that you break up your stretching within any given session. Frequent stretching also makes lasting changes to your brain. The more you stretch a muscle, the higher your pain tolerance becomes. Long-term improvements to your flexibility can provide a better range of motion for your joints, potentially reducing your risk of muscle injury in the short and long term. But it's also possible to stretch too much, as flexible people can move their joints in potentially dangerous ways. Stretching may not be useful for all types of movements, especially those that rarely cause muscle injuries. For instance, when it comes to long-distance running, which involves limited joint movements, stretching is unlikely to prevent the most common injuries associated with the sport. It's important to understand that different lifestyles require different types of mobility. Each person has their own specific needs, so there isn't a single stretching routine that can work for everyone in every situation. I hope you found this video enjoyable. If you liked what you saw, I kindly ask you to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel to stay updated with our latest content and help support us in creating more videos like this. Thank you for your support.